It's 5:30 and we do have a quorum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hi, Grace.
Hello.
And as acting co-chair, I will lead today's meeting. So if we can call the meeting to order, and in fact, I have Jessica record attendance. And as we go to Article 2, if I could get a motion to accept this evening's agenda.
I'd make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Grace. Second,
Second it.
all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nothing. Great. Introduction of new members. We have one of the two here. Outstanding. We'll let you introduce yourself and then we'll introduce all ourselves too, so you know who we are and what we do.
Sounds good. Chris Bingham, I've lived in Cascade now, I think since 2014. Been in Grand Rapids since 2000, grew up in Michigan and Battle Creek. I work at Herman Miller now in Miller Knoll. That'll be 24 years in March coming up. So mostly finance roles and numbers and budgets and all that kind of good stuff. So excited to be on the committee and love the history here. Love kind of the what we can see kind of going forward too. So excited.
Fantastic. Thanks, Chris.
And then Kristen Carlson, the other member from a business owner, had knee surgery today. So she was going to try to log on virtually if the pain meds hadn't kicked in too much, but she'll be at the next one.
We might be able to talk her into it.
Yeah, now's the time, right?
Oh, she's not giving away her pain meds. She's just.
We're talking about the chair.
Oh, got it.
Yeah,
You could draw straws.
Chris, my name is Steve Steffen. I'm the owner of the Culver's Restaurant here.
Oh, it's
And I've, this is my second term, on the DDA. Yes.
Scott Preston. I'm just a resident of Cascade. And I've been doing this for about 5 months, so I'm relatively new.
I'm Michelle Quilo. This is my 4th year on the board. And I've lived in our neighborhood it'll be 26 years in March.
Wow.
And yeah, it's been fun and interesting and, engaging to meet a lot of different people that are involved in the township. And so I think you'll enjoy it.
Scott Vogel, my wife and I own Nothing Bun Cakes down the road.
Oh, yeah.
We also live in Cascade, and I think we're all in the same neighborhood. So that's
Trying to
pretty
minimize
exciting.
that part, but it's all out.
No, but it's an amazing community, so of which you already know.
And who are we missing then? We're missing Rishi
Rishi,
and Renee.
Renee.
Renee will not be here today. She's out of town.
Okay,
Anyone else?
Rishi. is the other-
Yep. Okay.
Okay, and Rishi is the owner of Rishi's International Beverage.
okay.
Yeah.
So we've got 2 residents at large, yourself and then Michelle Kalela, and then we've got 1 resident who actually lives in the district. We're required by statute, and then business owners or.
Nice. Nice to meet you all.
Likewise.
Likewise.
All right, so let's move on to Article 4. Approval of the minutes of the December 19th regular meeting. If you have not had a chance to read the minutes that Jessica had sent out last week. If there's anything that you need to bring up that needs to be corrected and or adjusted, please let us know. Otherwise, I will take a motion to accept the December 19th regular meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve those minutes.
Thank you,
I
Grace.
second.
Thank you, Scott. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And then we're also going to need to approve of the December 19th informational meeting minutes. There again, I will ask for an approval of those minutes.
Make a motion to approve those minutes.
Thank you, Scott. And a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Michelle. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Article 5, acknowledgement of any visitors, which there are none in-house. Do we have anybody on Zoom?
Do you want to let your new member introduce yourself?
Oh, she's here. Absolutely. Yes, please.
Kristen Carlson, looking forward to getting to know all of you. Sorry, my voice is so hoarse from the anesthesia, but I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, Kristen, and welcome.
Thank you.
Get better soon.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. I will.
All right, we're on to Article 6, election of officers. So as Jennifer Poplava's term was up and not reappointed, that has opened up the position of chair for the DDA for Cascade. Do we have anyone interested?
This was the pre-meeting discussion. Yes.
Yes, you are. Okay. Anyone else interested? Thank you, Michelle.
That's right.
Awesome. So would anybody like to nominate, I guess, Michelle as chair of the Cascade DDA?
Make a motion or just nominate Michelle for chair.
Excellent. And I will second that. All those in favor of Michelle being chair? Aye. Any opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. You're gonna be great.
We already know you can do it because
and as far as co-chair, I have been the co-chair. I will take the position again, but if there are others interested in co-chair, they're more than welcome to jump into the
We'll defer to your continued.
Into the fire?
leadership.
fantastic. Thank you.
I make a motion for member Stefan to continue serving as vice chair.
I second.
All those in favor?
I,
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Does that take care of your officers for you?
Secretary.
Secretary. Oh, yes. Thank you.
Currently, Renee is the secretary.
Are we allowed to nominate and prove someone who's not here?
I think so. It's happened in the past. So.
Okay.
Done here. But
I would nominate Renee.
I would
She
second
does a
that.
wonderful
She
job.
does a great job.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so it has been nominated by Michelle, seconded by Grace. All those in favor?
I,
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We move on to Article 7, the McKenna Professional Services Contract. And Jade, I'm assuming that you are going to hunt this off.
Yes, I can do that. So if you don't mind, well, yeah, I'll just go through one by one because we have two contracts before you
Sure.
tonight for consideration. The McKenna contract is an expanded contract as they already have and do work for the township and the DDA. So it's come to our attention that the strategic plan that they were working on and the master plan they're working on, they've exceeded what they're actually doing for us. So we need to expand their contract. I took a very similar contract to the Board of Trustees last week and it was approved for overall planning services for the whole township. They're going to help with the master plan implementation and the zoning ordinance updates that are going to come along with that master plan once it's adopted. This here is specifically with the DDA for things that the DDA may be undertaking, such as we move forward with the village design and then also the various grant and incentives that we've been discussing. They are going to work on that program as well. More of the technical planning services that the DDA may need. At this time, it's almost necessary because we are not having very good luck with getting applicants for actually a new community planner. So they are actually going to be filling in at Township Hall with office hours and actually taking on some of the responsibilities and duties of our planning department. So this is a way to just kind of round out their services for the township. And this contract is specifically with the DDA. There are funds in the budget for this year that were passed to allow for this contract. Obviously, we would manage that to make sure we stay within budget, but you'll still see Danielle, and actually she might be on the call tonight. You'll still see Danielle and other representatives from McKenna at our meetings when assistance is needed.
So how is their time going to be separated since they're doing township work?
Right. I would.
And some of it is going to be DDA work.
Right. It'll be very, the DDA work would be very specific. That'll come out of direction out of this meeting. Everything else will be township related.
Okay.
Mhm. even the zoning ordinance, because we're going to be doing the zoning ordinance updates throughout the entire township. That's going to be it's going to be very challenging administratively to try and break that between what's in the DDA and then what's, outside the DDA. So that zoning update will just be coming out of the other contract or that funding. And I think this was actually, it might have been my first meeting, or maybe it was the meeting in October. I believe it was actually somewhat talked about when Danielle was here. We were talking about the facade and grant and sign improvements, grants that we were going to need to expand this contract.
So then do you need a motion for approval on this? Did Danielle want to talk anything about this?
I don't know if she wants to talk or not. She's more than welcome, but yes, we would need a formal motion and second and a vote to approve.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Hi. I hope you guys all had a nice new year. I'm trying to see if I can turn on my video, but I'm not quite certain how to do that. But nonetheless, thank you, Jade, for kind of synthesizing that the contract that we had put together. Just to kind of echo Jade's analysis of this, essentially, this would be to assist with DDA related matters in conjunction with our
Oops. Looks like we lost her.
We may have lost you.
okay. They just changed the meeting settings so I could be added as a panelist, so that way I could turn on my video. Anyway, thank you guys, and thank you also for the opportunity to join virtually. The roads were not great today. So I hope everyone's staying safe. But just to echo Jade's comments, essentially our role with regard to the DDA would be to essentially assist with anything and everything office related, if that means putting together packets, agendas, assisting with any like administrative items that with relation to DDA meetings and DDA services that we could handle like while we're at the township during office hours. Additionally, this would also cover any work that's related to any type of like facade improvement grant programming or any type of site improvement grant programming or sign grants like we had talked about a few months ago. In addition to talking about how to elevate the Cascade Village area. And then also if there's any development plan or TIP plan updates that need to occur as a result of all of the work that the DDA is doing. So it's kind of a umbrella contract to sort of address items as they are needed per the direction from the DDA and township leadership.
Okay. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or concerns with anything, Michelle?
Is there a not to exceed on this contract?
I do not have a not to exceed on this contract. We will just
Okay.
abide by what other approved budget amount was.
Okay.
Is it kind of like how, what is it, monthly invoices,
Yeah,
Danielle?
will be
So it's
invoiced
every
monthly.
30.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, and since we already have a close working relationship with the township, I'd imagine, you know, through being there also in person at least once a week, that we'll have that communication back and forth of if there's too much money being spent on, you know, one certain facet, or, you know, we'll keep tabs on that to make sure that we're working within the parameters that the DDA expects us to and that township leadership is comfortable with.
And I
Dave
guess.
does- Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think looking at the budget this year compared to what you were used to last year, we've got some other line items in there that we will be closely monitoring and have to work within those budgets. Something that I've actually just now realized has not been on your agenda in the past has been a financial statement or a financial summary update each month. So we will be incorporating finances into this each month. And I don't know how I overlooked that since I got here, but we will have another item on your agenda starting next month that'll show finances and expenses compared to budget. So you'll know exactly where the budget is year to date.
Any other questions or concerns?
And this is approving for like a year out or just an ongoing.
I think it would be like, for example, our law, we have, you know, with our accountant and law firm, that kind of stuff, it's month by month, so you can cancel anytime, but it also doesn't have a set expiration time.
Got it. Okay.
Although the budget kind of naturally concludes annually, but.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, if no other questions, anyone care to make a motion to approve McKenna to assist with the DDA for various tasks?
I motion to approve McKenna Professional Services contract.
I second it.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. That does pass. Go on to Article 8, which is the OHM professional service contract.
Okay, great. This one will probably have some deeper dive conversation into. But when I was going back to, I guess, July, when I was hired in, one of the emphasis that was put on this position was the emphasis on the village and the redevelopment and the development of the village area. And then as I started, I looked at the entire DDA. We've talked about some things in the budget process about the whole corridor and making sure that it's very defined and that you know you're in Cascade, and just some new initiatives that were approved in the budget to take on. One of the biggest ones was this village and the transition area that has come along with the master plan. And this is a firm that I have worked with actually at all 3 locations that I have been at before. It's a professional service contract to create a concept. And I may have mentioned this, I believe, at one of the previous meetings, either October or November of last year. And to work through OHM to come up with a concept for the village area now that we have secured the doctor's office and we actually have taken possession of the Tuffy building. So now there's really a lot of work to be done in that village area, and then to create that unique look, feel, and access that we want. One of the other meetings that I first had with Grace was with the owners of the Cascade Center, I think is what it's called. They're willing to come to the table. They want to do some public-private partnerships. This firm has experience in doing that, in working with developers there that could work with us on creating some more public use spaces within the village itself. And I know it's kind of a high ask for the dollar amount that we're requesting. It is in the budget. This dollar amount was put in the budget for this year, knowing that this was going to come back before the board for discussion and consideration. And at this point, I do have some examples that I would. Computer screen's up there, but I do have some examples that I wanted to show you of some concepts and some of the results that we would get from them. This is a 5-step process, I believe. If you look in there, there's 5 tasks. And like I said, there is items where they will come out for meetings. They'll work with us as the DDA in order to work on their concepts, listen to what the community wants, which they already have a good handle on that, because I did provide them with our strategic plan. And so they've seen those results of the surveys. And so I guess with that, I would like to show you some of their concepts that they provided other communities. Yeah, and if you hit number 2 on your box under there, it'll show you exactly what's on the screen. And I will, let's see. So I guess a little caveat when I start showing these are all concepts that were done for other communities. Some of the communities I have actually been involved in, actually just one, no, maybe there's 2, where they did concepts for us. But it just, I picked some of the concept that they sent me to show you because of how versatile they are and how they really will customize it for Cascade. So, and I think a lot of this, what they're doing will also help us work with our current. This is just one of the concepts that they came up with for public space, but this will also help us work when we're trying to recruit developers or redevelopment within the village to show them exactly what it is we're looking for. We'll be able to publicize this on our economic development page. It'll memorialize the standards that we want. And then these kinds of concepts also will help drive the zoning, which McKenna will help assist us with in putting that technical piece, that technical spin on these designs. So I'll kind of let the concept speak for itself. But again, everything will be customized for, this is whatever community they were working in. This was what they created for them. And it also helps when you're trying to explain to the community too, what we're trying to accomplish. Especially with our new public space, acquiring the Tuffy building and the doctor's office along Tassel Park and along the river, what could be done.
Our river is bigger than their river.
Yes. This is just a still, but it still shows you the kind of a concept that they created with some shopping outside of a sports arena. This one I was directly involved in. This is actually in a new area and it's kind of fuzzy. But this was very specific for a developer that we were actually trying to recruit to there's a village in Canton that we were trying to recruit. So this actually was specifically designed for us to show them what that site could look like. And so this is also another capability that they have to assist us.
Have we talked about so at the township level with staff, I think we did, but we've had several meetings, but we haven't, they were kind of waiting for the township to move forward. But with the owners of a good chunk of that Chowhound place where the township they would allow the township to use its privately owned parking lot, but turn it into a public space. That's something that's not this necessarily, but
When we had some discussions about that a long time ago,
Oh,
when
yes,
we were,
yeah.
yeah.
And again, these can be as simple or as extravagant as we want. This one really kind of struck me. If you think about Tassel Park right here and the river and what maybe. It's frozen. Oh, this is one of the coolest ones too. I will have to email this to you guys, but they actually did a glass bridge out. Oh, here we go.
That's cool.
They might be able to even create a waterfall for us.
Wonder how close you can do that to the dam.
Yeah, I was thinking the same. That's cool. Wow.
And these are just some other stills that they
Are they a national company or local?
OHM, so
or statewide?
OHM, yeah, OHM Advisors, they started as an engineering company out of Livonia, and then they actually acquired an urban planning division or urban planning and architecture company out of Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
That's where these designers are at, but they collaborate with their Michigan cohorts.
So Jade, what is it about? Is it a particular designer? We've had this like OHM in particular that.
Yeah, so this gentleman's name is Tony, who is amazing that I've worked with in the past. And he's just dynamite. He is an urban planner by trade. But he just has this vision. He's almost like an artist. And so he leads up the group that does all of these. Thought this one was really interesting, although I'm having trouble keeping this on my screen. I don't know why it keeps kicking me off, but this is actually one, and if you had your phones on you, you could actually scan that barcode and it'll actually take you to their concept here. And then as you move your phone, it's like you're walking across the intersection. So I'll email this to you guys too. It's actually pretty cool. And then of course they can provide the stills as well. So we can do some graphics, and this works well for economic development and trying to recruit developers or businesses into the district. This really did not load well. I apologize.
So Jade, you said you use this company in Canton, is that correct?
Yes, they're actually doing a project right now in Canton, and then I use them in Westland as well.
And so this gentleman or whatever, the company, they come in with a, so to speak, a vision for the community to say, this is what we think it could be based off of, again, all the feedback that they've gotten from all the stakeholders.
Yes.
And as they either presented that to the local municipality or whoever makes the decision over there, how many people have jumped on from the developer standpoint, from the community to say, yes, this is where we see it? Or are they still at the stage of pretty pictures and so forth?
No, so
Is anything happening?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. In Westland, I worked for them. They worked with me over 10, 12 years ago. And what they did and the vision that they did it's actually a very, very large park area is already been constructed and is up today. So if you were to Google Central City Park in Westland, you will see that that's their creation, their vision. They actually created almost a man-made lake. It's a stormwater detention pond, but it's always full and people use that as community space. There's soccer fields behind it and pavilions. Couple of farmers markets, one can be used year round. So that vision is already constructed and done.
Were there any metrics put on that? Because again, I know you'll get to what the cost is and knowing what that cost is that they're proposing to us.
Mhm.
You know, there again, the buildings could be there, pretty pictures, but if nothing is coming back into the community,
Right.
and we're not getting any kind of return on this investment,
Mhm.
is it worth the investment?
So again, very valid, and that's really hard to tell. This is a newer region to me, but I can tell you the one I showed you from Canton, where it showed it was very specific for that building and it kind of did the fly through. That was specifically because there was emphasis put on the village area there that we were going to be working on, and they created that. And then that recruitment was actually happening. Are you guys familiar with Slow's Barbecue out of Detroit? That was actually for Slow's Barbecue to open up another location in Canton. I since have left. I don't know if Slows is still interested in coming, but that was very specific. And that did not happen until they knew that there was actual work being done and there was an emphasis being put on that village and that revitalization. And their buildings and their concept has absolutely helped that.
I think the key with it actually happening is on us at the township. And I think we're ready internally. We have the staff and then we're aligned as far as from the board down, planning commission, Parks Committee, I think it's taken a while to get there and the DDA's kind of been off on, the DDA hasn't, and I'm part of this too, there hasn't been a good connection with the DDA or it seems like there was a little bit of a disconnect with the board, the DDA, the planning commission, and unfairly so, but I think that this was the number one goal of residents' feedback from the strategic plan. It makes sense that it's at the DDA's lab, but it's also the most complicated and hardest. And the work to make it happen has been over the last 2 years. Like this will happen because we have a well-funded DDA. And we talked to them about, for example, our current master plan, where the gas station is into D&W. I was looking over the master plan before. It says a lot of the right stuff, but absolutely nothing has happened in that, or nothing happened with the master plan. It was just a piece of paper. Same with the old parks plan, nothing happened. Our strategic plan, we're killing it as far as like checking the boxes, just killing it. We're actually ahead of schedule. But like, for example, part of it is making it a doable plan. So where we've got a gas station, there's new ownership at that gas station, the one where D&W coupons work. New owner, they've got less than 3 years left with this current lease, but the new owners they're amenable to doing, more greenery and different kinds of things. We're still a gas station, but you might not see it like a gas station. It's just a lot nicer. But right now we had like 3-story multi-use townhomes there. Like that's not going to happen, at least not while we're all on the board. But if we come up with a plan that's actually, realistic, that works with what we have, I think that's how it gets done.
I think Steve's point is a good one, though, in terms of, as we go forward on any of these projects, that there are some really well-defined objectives or KPIs or whatever so that we can measure the success of the project. just going forward with other things, and also to reiterate to the residents of the community that been a good investment. This is what's come back from it.
And I think one of the biggest takeaways from this is going to be the redevelopment of the Tuffy Doctor's Office Tassel Park site. Because that right now, that's all in our hands. That's
Mhm.
all on the township to redevelop and make what it is that we want. There are developers like, oh yeah, we should put in a 3-story mixed use condo high rise. And from everything that I've heard from members of the community and the board of trustees, that is not what the township wants. They want this green space, similar to the one that's on your screen now. I mean, when I saw this one, I'm like, this is pretty close to, not close, but it's the idea of that public space, no buildings, adding to the quality of life for the Cascade residents.
Right.
So that part right there, I think the measurable there, although it may not increase the tax base, will be the use of that site and what we can use it for. Concerts, the tree lighting, other events that can be put on in the village that'll drive business to the village, and that all of those businesses around there will succeed.
Yeah.
So when I actually talked to a resident, he lives on the river and he actually jet skis up the river with his son, docks there, gets off, gets ice cream and gets back on the jet ski and goes home. And I said, well, what would you feel? I mean, he goes, yeah, with the dock, right? That's what we were talking about. There's really no dock, but having that kind of amenity there where people actually will come to that village, that core of the community, and actually shop down there, that's, I think that's the measurable too, to see how much it's used.
Well,
And then when somebody like, Nothing But Cakes moves to the village as opposed to 28th Street.
Mhm.
Right. But then, I guess I look back at, the purpose of the DDA, and that's to drive businesses and so forth, and economic value along within our boundaries, and making sure that we, so to speak, don't cross those lines, and now all of a sudden the DDA, is becoming the landscape people, which we can't put any kind of economic value to that. Now, if we have a site where there's concerts and then people are down there and they're going for ice cream at Frosty Boys and whatever, and then now there's a link, okay, I might be able to buy that. But I just don't want the DDA to
Fund green space.
yes.
Exactly. Well said.
That's
Tack on to what Steve was bringing up, I think it'd be interesting to see what their success rate is from concept to execution. And what their case studies might be of just what kind of economic upside they've been able to bring to certain projects. But I think with all of this, though, it comes down to how tight your design brief is. Because it's one thing, if they're going to go and develop a $20 million space, that's probably outside of what the Cascade Township's going to be able to execute. But I think if we're really tight on what our core objectives, back to what KPIs and everything else, I think then we're in that better realm. But part of that design brief is, gosh, there's like a low, medium, and high. If we land on a certain design of like, okay, if we get more private funding, we could knock it way out of the park. If it doesn't come in, we can still execute and hit our objectives. But I think that's where it comes down to being really tight. I love the imagery, right?
Yeah.
It's just, my
And
concern
at a
is,
price tag,
can we-
$135,000.
can we execute it?
Is it,
And
are we gonna get the
Maybe we
bang for the
need-
buck?
Right. And I think just a comment to having the low, high, and the medium, but it's also that visual when I go out and look at developers and say, hey, this is what we have a vision for. This is what our expectation is going to be. And Danielle's on the call if she wants to chime in, but we talked about some form-based code, which is, I don't know if anyone's familiar with what that is, but basically, as opposed to having all of the zoning, and Danielle, you're going to have to correct me if I get some of the lingo wrong, but
Okay.
The zoning isn't so much that there's this setback, there's that setback, there's this. This is a picture of what we want. We want this neighborhood, or we want this side of the road to look like this. We want this area we want this to be built here. So the code becomes very form-based, and it's all about the vision. I guess we can share that we've had preliminary conversations with the Kent County Road Commission, and they're open to talk about the roads and Old 28th Street and things that we can do differently there with right of ways. So there's been talk. And so if we took a parcel of land that isn't there today and is there tomorrow and went to a developer, so we want this, that's where this concept helps too. And that's not out of our coffers, that's out of a developer's coffers. And then that drives business back into the village as well.
Is it fair to say that highest priorities that the DDA can and work with, or OHM could, one of the lowest hanging fruit, or the Tuffy area, Doctors area, it's also, this is already funded, but that coincides with the bridge, the pedestrian biker bridge enhancement, which will include like kind of like an entrance into the village, lighting, all that kind of stuff, landscaping, bricks, just so it looks like you're entering a village area. That Tuffy, possible underneath, under the river connection, walkway, and then the giant parking lot, Chowhound Dollar Tree, where they allow, it's still a privately owned, but make it a public space. Those could be, as far as top priorities, bang for your buck, totally doable. And we've already, those owners are waiting. It's the perfect group of owners to have.
And just, so I want to just give a little more context to also, there's a method to the madness of also creating a space that is inviting for people to come to an area like this. I used to be involved, one of the communities I was in actually had a traditional downtown. And I was involved in this organization called the Michigan Main Street group, which is actually a national organization. And what that did, there was a lot of things about creating the space to get the people down there. And then it's on the businesses to actually put on, whether it's sales, events, whatever they're doing, offer goods and services, they're going to get those people into their businesses. So at the end of the day, the green space still does support economic development by having those reasons for people to come down to the village area. So they actually will go and patronize those businesses. So, and I'm more than happy to share, actually as we go through this process, it would be great to have somebody from the state come down and talk to us about this Main Street initiative, because it's pretty amazing. And I went to conferences across the country in different Main Streets. They would house them nationally every year. And it's pretty amazing some of the tactics you can use to actually support your businesses by bringing people to your downtowns. And I say downtowns, that's very loosely used, but to your shopping districts.
When we hired you at the board, not the only two things, but two of the top priorities of what we were looking for in a manager was one, financial experience, good with finances, and then two, because it was the number one resident goal in the strategic plan, village redevelopment, enhancement of a village. So those are those were two of the biggest pluses. And we've talked about it. Part of the reason I don't think anything's happened in the past, because it is kind of complicated, but we went out and found, the people who can do it. And I think there was a couple trustees who met OHM when they came up, and we walked around and discussed it with them based on Jade working with them. And the head person, Tony, was very creative, very professional and passionate about it. You could tell that he was excited about it and really listened to part of it is Cascade's trying to retain its character too, at the same time, given all the growth pressure. So there's like a balance, right? I thought I haven't seen anything in paper, but he was very creative, impressive, and very excited, really excited. You could tell his brain was really moving.
So was he sharing that vision in his head as he was walking?
Yeah, he couldn't help it. He's like, you guys have a built-in, he's like, you have the dam right here. He's like, look, there's like a woman meditating. He's like, this is people pay money to make this kind of he's like, you could tell his brain. It was one of those, it's like, he's just wired differently.
And we actually walked, thank goodness it was in the fall. Oh, actually, no, I think it may have been December. We actually walked Old 28th all the way down 28th Street to Cascade. We walked through the Chowhound parking lot, back behind by the grocery store, back by the Cascade Roadhouse, all of that. So he saw the connectivity and just the ability of what, again, it's not something that can be done in a year or two, but the vision of actually taking all of that real estate and actually revisioning it, not being another Ada, but being Cascade's own unique self along the river and utilizing that asset that we have to create this village environment that isn't really there right now. And he was very excited about it.
Yeah, I think this is awesome. This comes back to my previous experience with product design. I don't think we have a really tight design brief yet. Like if I look at this, there's only one area plan, but it's only from Greenleaf down to the Thornapple River. But what we're talking about as a group, we're talking about Old 28th Street. We're talking about, you know, the entrance into what we consider the downtown area, starting with the investment that we've made up here. I think if we're gonna do this, I think we have to holistically look at the whole
All the
thing if we're gonna
pieces.
make an investment. That's, I mean, my point of view. I feel like one paragraph to set off $130,000 project, while it's in our heads, it's got to be in paper to get us to where we need to be. I think the money is very well spent if very well defined.
Is that something that we can do to like, you know, more specific areas? Because we know, I mean, essentially it's the whole DDA, it's just different things are needed at different places, like public safety is highest priority around the expressway. Centennial Park's already had a huge remodel in the last 10 years.
And I think there's been a lot of, I think it's open to opinion, good or bad work done, but there's been a lot of investments on what we were going to do, where if Tuffy's was going to be no more. And I think there's also some thought leadership about could that corridor in Old 28 turn into a culinary zone. And there's some great inputs that if we're aligned on, we can kind of put this together where it all fits together to be something
That's the goal.
amazing to sell the goal.
I will say that I can talk about, I watched the DDA meeting and the board meeting where the board rejected the prior plan for just the Tuffy. And this would be a lot more, well, we should define it as it's a larger space than the Tuffy and a larger project. And I know that plan won't, I know why it didn't pass. I watched Sandra's, explanation. I remember Steve said, do you have any idea why the trustees didn't go for it? And what she said, and I hadn't yet taken office at that time, but I could tell you exactly. I mean, I just sat there and watched it happen. And I know it won't go. There's a few flaws with it. It's pointless to sit. There are good things about it. It's not all bad, but I can tell you that if we want to actually move, we're in a position where we can move. You're not going to have that situation where you prime up, get a plan, and then all of a sudden it goes to the board, it gets rejected, and then the staff member just says, no, like it was hard to watch that all happen. The DDA wasn't given a good explanation about why it didn't pass. I just watched it all. We're not doing that anymore.
And I did not pick up, and I apologize, because when I spoke with him, the whole DDA was actually in the concept. So whatever the theme is that we do in the village will carry its way through the DDA. So I can get him to amend this contract too, to include all the way down. Because I will tell you, and I've not been shy about this, when I took the job and got off of the highway at 96 and 28th Street, I heard all about Cascade and the standards that it has, and I didn't see it. Your business is down there.
Yeah.
There's just, that's why we talked about the landscaping, and I hate to keep bringing up the landscape, but I do think that's a defining point for the township to get down to whatever the ultimate, village is, and transitioning down 28th Street to the village. So that language I can get expanded and get that cleaned up, and I apologize I went right to the task.
So when you say
I
the
missed it.
language, are you saying the green leaf to
Yes.
Thornapple?
Yeah.
The boundary, defining
Yeah.
the boundaries.
But
better.
also, I think it's what we want
Mhm.
within there. If there's kind of we're painting a picture of what are our objectives in that space.
So I'm gonna ask $1 million question, because you're making me think about in terms of, a more concrete design brief. Should we have put out an RFP and ask firms and define what these things are that we want? Because typically, so this is just me and my background, I'm used to working in a process
Mhm.
that, you ask multiple people to put a proposal together that's answering those questions, that has some real definition around it.
I think we could. I think the reason that I felt comfortable bringing them directly to you is one, my past experience with them.
Understand.
Number two, they've actually dove into the strategic plan and know the goals and the visions. They've looked at the survey results of the strategic plan. So some of that public outreach that would probably would be done by another entity as well, has some of that's been done.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, I would probably, on a professional service like this, go out for an RFQ, which is a request for qualifications, on an RFP, which is a request for proposal,
Mhm.
which usually comes right down to price. And I don't know that if you really want the quality result, sometimes it's not always dollar based. But I totally am here to do, whatever. I just felt very comfortable bringing
Have
them.
they done any projects in Western Michigan?
They have a Kalamazoo office,
Kalamazoo?
but
Well,
we
In an
walk,
office of Kalamazoo.
well, so, because they're here to do work in Kalamazoo, but we don't know, the creative person is out of Columbus. And it was funny when we were walking around, they came in from Columbus and you could tell he's like more of the designer mind. And inter-office competition, all of a sudden an OHM truck shows up at Tassel Park and he's like, oh, that's the Kalamazoo office. They're, everyone's protects her.
So-
I'm just wondering
Yeah.
if they've done any projects in Western Michigan so that they
They
have
have not.
some.
Not
You'll-
like this. No, they do engineering work out here, but they have not done this type of
Okay.
urban planning, architecture.
I think the key message, and I don't want, I think all of this is so awesome and exciting. I think what it really comes down to, I think what I'm hearing is, man, we're past that phase of we want pretty pictures. We want something we can take and develop and turn into something great for the community. Let's go. We've got the resources to do it. I think the key is let's make sure we get it right. At least from my standpoint, I just want to make sure we're really, really, instead of just saying, hey, let's go. If we just hold up for a nanosecond and just define it really tightly, then I think that's going to be very helpful. And then it also helps us hold them accountable in each one of the phases of, are you meeting the deliverables against this?
So with that said, Scott, as you said, are they aware of, what that need is? So apparently they did the walk and, between Jade and Grace, you guys,
4
probably
hours, 3 hours.
Mhm.
said what the need is. I'm not dismissing it, but I'm just wondering what was shared. For me
It's more of what
personally,
wasn't
what I'm
shared.
feeling right now is it's like we've been kind of left out of that process. It's went from, we know that we want something to happen. And then we found the people that's going to make it happen, and we just need the approval to spend the $135,000 to do it. And it to me, and maybe I'm wrong, it just feels like, okay, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what that process is that they're going to be taking to get us to that point. And if within the description of Greenleaf to Thornapple, and now potentially you may be going back and saying, hey, we need to include the entire DDA, that 135 may be going up to 270.
Mm-mm.
I see what you're saying. I really do. And I can tell you that the bulk of I think the reason that he probably worded it that way, and I will verify again with him, is that's where the concentration of the work is going to happen, but it's going to spill out to the entire district. So you're not going to see an increase in cost. I'll verify that with him. The other thing is I want to just bring attention to task 1 on here. It is broken down by task. Each task has a different cost associated with it. So we did an initial. The reason we had them come up was, one, I needed them to be familiar with the area and make sure this is something they were even interested in doing. So that is what happened when they came up for that half a day, was not task 1. They still have task 1 to do, which is going to be all inclusive of listening to, the board, steering committee, the DDA, getting that information. They've already done the site visit and walkthrough, but they're going to come up with a final scope and schedule of the project, the finalized desired outcomes, which I think is what I'm hearing today, that wants versus needs. So that's going to be in there, and that assessment will occur there. And then define, is there a steering committee member roles and responsibilities? because the other thing we want to do is make sure that we're not having meeting after meeting after meeting, but, you know, representation from the DDA, representation. And Grace and I just had this conversation this morning because I was trying to think of who else could we put on the steering committee? And I'm thinking outside of what is on the DDA and the board. We have some other stakeholders within the community and other organizations that represent the community, like the Community Foundation, the Right Place. We have some other people that want to get involved that are business owners in other communities.
Yep.
Both
Within the
downtown
town,
Grand Rapids and in Ada. So let's get their feedback.
we've met
and-
with the head of the Right Place, this is Dave and I in the last month and a half. MEDC, that 2 representatives, part of getting back on track with that redevelopment ready program. The Right Place, MEDC, and Cascade Community Foundation, the head of the Justin Swan. And then some of the owners and their potential developer partner within that shopping
So
mall.
when we talk about the wants versus needs and then that steering committee, that's where I think the definition is. And you know, I think if you look at the pricing breakdown, we go through that. And now again, if an RFQ is what's really wanted, we can pivot. But it's broken down by each one of those tasks. So if they come out and we go through task 1 and we're like, you know what, you are not the firm for us. This is not what we want. No one has a good feeling on it. We're done. Like that, we don't go to task 2. So, and I think that's what I like about this proposal. It's not here, we're writing a check for $130,000. It's broken out and each task is measurable throughout that entire process. And I know we talked about the pretty pictures and all that, but that is actually a task in of itself.
Mhm.
So that is task number 6, which has a price tag, which if we decided we didn't want to go with that and we felt comfortable with just a regular design and regular site plans and things like that, then that's all, I mean, we could go at that point.
And 6 typically gets businesses to invest, right? Let's say we had a restaurant corridor or whatever.
Yeah, that's where,
AC vision.
yeah.
So there's a Kalamazoo, I can't remember if it's barbecue, brewery, or both, but some of the owners of that Cascade, of the part of the plaza at the end of 28th Street are in contact and know of a Kalamazoo business that is interested in opening a second place, but it's all, you know, but right now
Waiting to find out what's, well, I would totally
that's the
understand
same
that.
thing. What is it? Everyone's always waits and then but everyone wants to climb on board afterwards. But you gotta first trek through, you know, you gotta first make the path.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, everyone's on board. In the meantime, we're being told you're never gonna be Ada by people who are trying to push crap developments in our downtown area. I mean, it's like, nobody wants to be the first one to take the step, but afterwards, everyone's gonna be climbing on board, trying to.
I will tell you, just from personal experience, take this company out of the equation. It could be anything. It could be any concept. It could just be the excitement. But where I was just at before I came to Cascade, it was on the outskirts of the township and it was called Cherry Hill Village. And they built all of this housing and all of this mixed use space, but it never took off. The housing sold, but the businesses, they couldn't get businesses to stay in there. Restaurants had a hard time. The minute that our board took the action of actually putting some dollars in there about redeveloping it and drawing attention, starting to buy up parcels of property, looking at some green space, some partnerships, literally there were people knocking on the door to be in on the ground level and to start building. And Slows was one of them. And then there was also another, it's not a chain grocery store, but it was a grocery store out of Dearborn that actually did open up a location in the village, all because there was emphasis put on there and they knew that it was going to be a priority for the township.
We
So-
had an owner that bought the Village Bike Shop on his own, right? And they got a great deal on it because nothing's happening right now. He showed up over the summer because he had heard about the facade improvement program, right? So he showed up on his own to the township offices to ask for ask about that facade improvement program because he's heard of village redevelopment. He's right at the village core, right? Not in the shopping center, but between there and the river. He was told by someone within the township, well, that really only, we're just looking at that for like the shopping center area. I didn't know that until I called him because I kept driving by, watching him do all the improvements, right? And thinking I just wanted to give him the heads up that, hey, we're looking at 2024 coming out with these facade improvement partnering, if it's something you're interested in. And he said, and I just wanted to let you know, because I see you're doing all the construction. And he said, it's funny you mentioned that. I actually went over to the township several months ago and I was told that it didn't really apply to me. So like, I said, that's absolutely not true. It would apply to you. Stay tuned.
So with that said, and with OHM coming in and putting this vision together, there's just a lot of moving parts.
Mhm.
And the moving parts of them creating the vision of us wanting to entice our businesses to say, hey, we're gonna pony up some money for you too. To redo your front and the planning and zoning need to come up with, okay, what is it that we're looking for from the perspective of, yeah, what kind of, siding, whatever the case may be.
We're on top of all of that. That's why it's been, what do you think the last 2 years have been? Yeah, it's a lot. My brain is full, your brain's full. It's been, we didn't have anyone internally. That's what the planning commission is working on. We've got a planning commission subcommittee. That's what McKenna with the nuts and bolts, but everything was kind of waiting. And the big piece was Jade having a manager that actually has done this because we didn't have any internal capacity to do it. And then if you're going to do it, you might as well do it right. If you're going to be a bear, you might as well be a grizzly. Like we went out, OHM, these are not common. We're not going to follow it. We're going to be better than it on a smaller scale,
But to your point, and I appreciate the concern because I do see where I don't think the emphasis was there, nor I don't want to use the word capability, but I do see there's a lot of balls in the air by doing this. But I think by bringing in the right people,
Mhm.
we can support it. And and I'm just talking, this is philosophical at this point, whether it's OHM or another firm to come in and do this,
Makes it more real.
that's one piece. McKenna is going to play, and I know Danielle, I asked you to talk about it 20 minutes ago, but McKenna's going to play a huge piece of this by offering that planning support and the depth that they have within their organization. When we talk about the nuts and the bolts and the black and the white, the technical piece, like they're going to drive that home, and then we can go from there. And they also have other skills too within that firm. And then just the involvement, I think, from the DDA, in me staying in front of you guys and talking about this and us promoting it, it is a lot to take. And then the finances, talked with Grace about some long-term, I mean, we don't know what all this is going to cost, but there's ways to finance things. If the DDA or the Board of Trustees wanted to look at those.
And we couldn't touch this at all until JD started in September. The budget came out. I mean, you had to know exactly what our financial situation was, that kind of stuff. So it's all been waiting. And then McKenna, you had the discussion with McKenna because that's a new thing for them too, to bring in a different design firm. So their willingness to take on kind of the technical aspect, whereas this one-time design concept would be with somebody else.
And does all of this work, does there have to be any changes to the TIF plan? To have all this work within it?
No,
No.
does not.
So the TIF plan is okay the way it is.
Yep.
Everything that we're discussing or we have the vision for falls in someplace within that TIF plan.
Yep. So yes, the only thing that you will see different, you might question that, is that if we start to talk about the village and then through our master plan process, we're going to work on like a transition area, because when you come off of 96 and you start seeing the hotels and the Walmarts and the car dealerships, that's not a village look. But as you get closer to the village, we have to kind of create, right, kind of by D&W, you've got to start transitioning some of that. So you'll start to see some different overlays, but that doesn't have anything to do with your TIF, and it has nothing to do with the DDA overall. It just has to do with overlays within the district.
And again, this isn't a 1-year project. This
Right.
is, 10 years out, whatever it's going to take. And again, with your financial background and knowing where we currently stand within our finances for the DDA and what income we have coming in each year, this is doable.
Yeah, 100%.
This
Yeah.
really kicks off everything. Like a lot of towns, they're trying to get residents to come in there. The good news is we already have the market, we have the residents. Now we're trying to attract the balance of the business and how to bring people down to our space. So.
Yeah, in regards to the finances, there were some pretty big changes within the budget this year. And you, as a board, elected to contribute significant dollars to the pedestrian bridge last year, and also to Friendship Park. So those are kind of one-time hits, so that you're going to see that revenue come back, and it's not we don't have that allocated to go somewhere next year. So I think definitely looking down the road, the the capture that the DDA has now is enough to support long-term projects like this. And the hope is that when you do this redevelopment, that's businesses. So it shouldn't be a ton on the DDA itself, other than the public space.
Well, that and any funds that we may contribute towards the enhancement of facades or whatever.
Right.
Whatever we.
Right.
Apportion to that.
Right.
Aspect of things.
Yep.
Part of it,
And-
with the Tuffy property on the corner, and your well taken point about, we don't want to use the DDA just to acquire green space. Part of it is that particular corner and the problem with traffic and making it more walkable, safe for bikers and pedestrians. Would be one of the reasons to not have private development on that corner, but kind of from a safety,
Sure, yeah.
mobility issue.
Oh, yeah.
And as you come
That's
off the
no
bridge,
problem.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
But I agree, we're not just like using business enhancement dollars to,
And
unless
that's
it's
basically,
Walmart. I would support doing it if it was Walmart.
that's kind of preserving the asset that we have in this community. It's the river in that area, which draws.
And I don't have a good handle on historically what happened with staff, because there's so many new people in Township Hall at this point that this is a very interactive, transparent process we go through, because this is actually, we're spending the taxpayer dollars on this type of space, and not only the Board of Trustees, but the DDA board. I mean, we're all in it together, and you guys are only going to have the information that, we've got to include you. We've got to, give updates at these meetings. Once whatever we do as far as concepts goes, the zoning, all that will be right out in front.
and with this, how will, knowing that McKenna is very integral to everything that we're going with on the whole strategic plan and everything. What do you foresee their communicate? How are they going to communicate between the two of them?
OHM and McKenna?
OHM and McKenna, yeah.
At the beginning, well, definitely both will be at the table when we kick it off. And I've talked to Danielle and Chris about this from McKenna. But then as we move forward, as far as like the concept goes, once the concept comes back, then that will kind of drive the zoning piece of that. And Danielle, correct me if you think there's anything, if I'm missing something, but that will then kick off the zoning piece of it, which will then drive the type of development and redevelopment that we want in the village. Would you say that's fair to say, Danielle?
Yeah, I think so. I think that the first piece of the puzzle is getting that master plan updated.
Oh,
And the master plan is going to kind of spell out a more clear boundary of what that village area will entail. And as of right now, and Jade kind of alluded to this, is that we were kind of looking into drilling down into like essentially several different sub-districts that are more based on what a building looks like rather than what it's used for. So essentially the way that the zoning would work, the initial idea, of course, we still have to hash out all the details, but the idea here is to essentially have almost like a menu, so to speak, of different building types that would be permitted within different sub-districts to essentially achieve the built environment. So then with that master plan kind of articulating that overall like general vision, then the details would then be further narrowed down into like the how-to and bringing in, OHM's skill set to kind of refine that vision further.
And Danielle, have you had any interaction with OHM or your firm in the past?
I have not, but I know that my colleague has. He has, I think his relationship or his working relationship with an individual OHM, I'm not quite certain who it was, worked kind of similarly to what Jade had just mentioned, that we're all kind of sitting at the table to provide input and feedback and direction and ideas and all of those things. And our piece of that would be more so of translating that into zoning and into the black and white words version of it. Whereas OHM will be kind of more of the visual aspect of it. I have not personally worked with anyone from OHM, but because they're more of an East Side company, that my East Side colleagues, I think, are more familiar with them than I am, for whatever that's worth. But I haven't heard anything bad. if that helps.
Thank you.
And I think Danielle's downplaying a little bit of their involvement too, because after OHM is gone, after this concept and we've memorialized kind of what we want and we've fixed the zoning, then actually comes the time to actually sit down to developers and redevelopers. And I see McKenna assisting with that too, because they've been on the ground level since the beginning. They can really interpret and will have a good grasp of what the township's goals were and direction. So if we have a developer, actually, it just happened on Old 28th a couple weeks ago, knowing they know what's going on with the master plan. We had someone come to build the building on Old 28th, and we had a conversation because it does not go, even though we haven't passed the master plan yet or done this form-based zoning yet, it's not going to go. So we kind of delivered that message, and unfortunately, Danielle was the one to deliver the message with Madison. But
The master plan is well in the works. Master plan, zoning ordinance following it, that's on the planning commission. That's there
Mhm.
to do. First meeting in February, or what would they?
Danielle, I know we have a timeline. I can't remember what the introduction is.
Yep, so the planning commission will see the first full draft. Well, I guess I should say it'll be publicly facing the full draft the second February meeting.
Okay.
So in like 30 days. Yeah.
And that includes land uses throughout the township, the whole situation with the airport, ensuring or trying to protect ourselves against additional on and off ramps and explosions of industrial development to preserve the residential character of Cascade, combined with the number one priority of the village redevelopment. Like, it's complicated, but it's towards its final stages. There were a ton of internal processes that we hadn't been really doing at the township level that McKenna's been able to catch.
And then looking at this, the OHM, the anticipation would be about 4 months for their work,
I think
the
that's
full
what
scope of
this-
their work,
I think that's what they said in here.
14 to 16 weeks.
If we went with all the tasks, yes,
If
14
we
to
went
16
with all the
weeks.
tasks. And I didn't, I'm not the legal eagle here as that standard terms and conditions in the respect of, Jade, you had mentioned that, after task 1, if things.
Mhm.
We just weren't seeing that vision that they see. We could be done and over at that
Yeah.
moment in time.
Yes. Okay.
And there's an allotment of $5,000 for reimbursement for expenses. Is that travel, considering those guys are in Columbus? And just making sure that it isn't above and beyond the 130.
Yes. Yes.
So the 5,000 is travels included within that scope.
Correct. Yes.
And each step along the way, is this a DDA decision, or this is a DDA, then we punt it off to the township board for them to make the decision? So,
I
And
think
you won't have it where that's on Jade, myself, it's collaborative.
But how do
If
we,
it's gonna work, it's gotta be both.
how do we get away from the silos though? Because we've.
By hiring a competent staff.
So-
No,
I-
I get it, but we've got a group that's left the station. We're trying to run and catch up with the train. And I just want to make sure there's defined, like, how are we all going to communicate so we're all successful together?
so. When you say the group that's left the station, are you referring to us
what I
already
mean by
having?
that is you've already done a walkthrough with this group and you've painted this picture of a vision. We don't know what we've talked about, and these are great conversations. It's not on paper
Right.
and it's not defined. And then if we say, hey, we go just based upon, oh, yeah, it includes everything else, but how do we shore up this communication and make sure we're all on the same page and working well together with all these different moving pieces so we're successful?
because I think with that point made, if they're looking at a 4-month time period.
Yep.
And from what I hear you saying, Scott, is, okay, so after task 1, they have to bring this information, or somebody has to bring this information to the DDA board and or to the township board.
Both.
Both,
Mhm.
to say, okay, we approve step 1, now let's go on to step 2. So really, this could take 6 months
It could.
based on the meeting
The time
schedules.
Between each
um,
of these tasks.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I can tell you, successfully working with them in the past, there has been a steering committee made up of representatives of like both the DDA, whatever boards are out there, whether it's DDA, Planning Commission, Board of Trustees, and then community stakeholders that would meet with them. But their initial kickoff will be with, they will be here in front of this board as well to talk about the progress. And this will be a standing item that'll be on there is going to be times where, you know, if they're working on this concept, we may not speak to them for a couple of weeks until all of a sudden they send us something and like, hey, what do you think about this? Well, no, that's not the direction. And I think they'll be working with myself, who will be like, yeah, don't put a building there because I know the board and the DDA is not going to want that. So go back to, you know, whether it's green space or a fountain or whatever. I'm just throwing terms out there. But then when it comes down to this draft conceptual plan, that's all going to come back and it's going to be very interactive. And I can tell you, and hopefully Grace can attest to this, there's a lot of silos in this township with boards and commissions right now that I am really working hard at breaking that down because
It didn't need to be this, and I would say the Board of Trustees, I've heard frustration about that the DDA is off doing its own thing. Having sat on both sides, I can tell, it's not gonna be like that. But you have to trust the Board of Trustees, the Board of Trustees needs to trust the DDA, and we've worked really hard to alleviate that. We've done nothing but try to keep, I mean, it's just been a long process.
No, and it's not a trust issue on my standpoint. I think there's just defining who's leading the communication. It's it's process.
Jade.
But then it's how are you going to push information? Is there going to be updates on, say, a white paper in between meetings so that there's less time digesting what's going on? If you have to propose everything or brief everyone within this meeting, I think there's a lead into it. But I think it just comes down to process to get away from the silos and the cadence of communication.
So just how I've done it in the past is that the steering committee or the stakeholder committee that is going to exist met every 2 weeks, you know, throughout the entire process, just to make sure that things were going. And then over and above that for any board and this is, I'm talking in the past, and I would do this for the DDA and the Board of Trustees. In between that would also be updates across the board to you. So I wouldn't just be updating at the monthly board meetings. Otherwise, we'll spend an hour just talking about this and then debating, well, why did we put that tree there as opposed to over here? Or why we can't have a 2-story building there? It's got to be a 1-story. No, all of that feedback, it needs to be more, it has to have more priority. It's got to be in real time. It's got to be, if they ask me a question, I'm going to put it out there, unless it's something that's very basic that I'm like, I can handle that one. But, you know, I've got 7 members on the DDA, 7 members on the Board of Trustees. The only one that's overlap is Grace. So I've got 14 people that I've got to take into consideration all opinions and concerns to make sure that we're addressing that.
Plus
So-
9 planning commissioners and
and
two
then
others. You've
planning
got about
commissioner.
70 thoughts, plus 20,000 residents, no big deal.
So
We gotta move. This
Yeah.
is so exciting.
this is where Jessica helps keep me organized.
No, but this realignment internally, like I hear, if I were sitting in your shoes, I would feel the same way. And I would say that it has been like pushing a rock uphill. I'm so excited that we're there, but we aren't gonna have those. We're not gonna have the silos. If we have silos, then Jade's not doing his job and I won't be reelected. Well, I may not be reelected anyways, but Jade's not doing his job. He is doing his job. This is how we get there. You were not, the DDA was not. We're not gonna have the same issues. And for the Board of Trustees, because it's frustrating as a board member to have a non-elected, you know, we're the ones who are directly accountable to the public. We're the ones who, for good or bad, take all the hits, right? Every resident, it comes to the Board of Trustees, no matter what. Supervisor, you're head of the Board of Trustees, so you get the bad, the good, no matter what. So it's very frustrating to have certain, you know, appointed residents who are off doing their own, you know, have their own priorities that don't align with yours because they're not going to take the shot. They're not accountable. So it's been a huge effort. Like the bus is what it is, but we spent over $2 million on that and the ridership wasn't there. Like this is the priority that the public wants. So if I'm the one who's going to take the shots, like there's a reason the supervisor is statutorily required to serve on the DDA. It's just, we're there. We're not going to be in silos like we were.
So if we address the communication in silos and we're going to have a process, so how do we get this document to a point where it's a little bit tighter and defined that they're going to agree to the whole scope.
Let's state on the record what the concerns are and the inclusion, what we need to include or modify.
Well, I think it comes down to what was the vision in that walkthrough that it was the intent of the document that isn't outlined.
I don't know that there was,
It wasn't.
there wasn't a vision that was outlined at the walkthrough. The walkthrough was really to familiarize them with the space and to kind of share this, the strategic plan of the township. And really that was about it. So in knowing that we're going through this master plan process too, this will be an integral part of the marrying the master plan to the village area as well. But there was no vision that was actually laid out. I mean,
Well, we
I
talked
can say like,
extensively about what-
we said, we don't want the Tuffy building, but we know we didn't want like an office building to go there either. That was about the extent of it. When we walked through, where the folding warehouse is and Chowhound, they were taking it all in. We didn't really say, here's our vision. First of all, it's not our property. So we didn't really give them a vision, but like we said, what about public-private partnerships? Very high level stuff. So when they come back, they'll do another, maybe they won't actually have to go through and do a walkthrough per se, because they've already done it. But when we sit down and we talk about our wants and needs with them and then defining that vision, that'll come out of that task one. And that can make sure that that is defined when we walk out of that room, and they communicate that back and memorialize it to make sure they understood what we wanted.
And so the steering committee that you're putting together is going to be at this meeting for task one.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. Selfishly, I will take anybody that I can get to sit on that steering committee without being overly cumbersome, because I need to make sure that you all, as the DDA board, are represented, the board of trustees is represented, and then the local business community is represented. So everybody will be at that meeting. And actually, I don't know, and I will ask him, because he went through an exercise at one of the last place I was at. We broke out into kind of breakout, and this was a much larger group than just the strategic plan or the stakeholder group. And it was kind of an inspirational workshop where he brought in visuals and things and what we found attractive, what we didn't find attractive, what we did like, what we didn't like. And then he took all of that to make, when they went back and started to talk about the streetscape and the concepts, they incorporated all of that. That was a plus. And then whatever was said, no, absolutely not, they left that off to the side.
So task one really buttons up all those details, I think,
Mhm.
that we would want to make a requirement that would mean success, so.
And if we wanted to, he would come up for another one of our meetings as well, even
Did we
prior.
pay him we didn't pay him for,
No.
that was a risk on his end, right?
Yeah.
We have the drone from the fire department that can get the videos and pictures if necessary, right?
We did it already.
Yeah.
Yep. I did have the fire department take their drone and they did a video of 28th Street, Old 28th, and then down around the river.
I'm wondering if in task one, that maybe if they tighten up some of the language that are in each of these. So, the bullets that they've got there, they basically kind of repeat those as deliverables. And I think that the first part really should be sort of what's going to happen, the activities. And then the deliverables should be something that comes out of those activities. And so, what Scott was referring to is having a really tight design brief around, I think that could be in this first task and really tighten that up more.
Like an additional bullet after, because
Well, so see, the bullets really should be about the activities, what we're going to do. And then the deliverables should be something different, like what's going to come out of that activity that they're going to be able to produce.
That's like the
For us-
design brief, right?
Exactly. For us to look at, or review or whatever. So I think if they tighten up that first task so that there's a higher comfort level on what they're going to be doing, how they're going to be doing it, and what we're going to see come out of that.
Yep.
maybe that will get us to where we feel like we're gonna have something concrete enough to look at and to decide whether, yeah, this is the right direction. We're in alignment in terms of vision. We've got some consensus around those things, and we feel like, and we have a comfort level that this is the right firm to work with.
Does
Okay.
that include memorandum? So if we look at the deliverables 1 through 5, site visit, scope of work and schedule, wants and needs assessment. So we have to be in agreement with what they're producing on this, right? Development program and principal goals. Meeting number 1 in parentheses memorandum.
Right.
Memorandum, like how,
Well, I think that's up to them. I mean, I just would like to go back to them and say, okay, here's what we feel like we need out of task 1. Define those bullets, those are the activities that are going to take place in this, this launch. And then what are those things? Because basically they've just repeated for the deliverables what those bullets were above.
I see what you're saying. I
And
think the most
I'd like those deliverables to be something different.
different,
So one's like the verb and the other is the object that we're gonna see as a
Yeah.
result of the activities.
And I think to your point, Michelle, actually, under the deliverables, 0.5 is really the only deliverable that they're gonna give.
I was
It's a
just gonna-
memorandum
Yeah.
of what they learned from talking with us, going through this,
Right.
the site visit,
Right.
identifying the wants and needs.
But, I
It's
mean,
just kind of like taking the data, because they're really not creating anything until
No.
they get to step 3.
but I
which
think
is
they
the
could,
concept.
but maybe I actually, you said exactly what I was seeing when I was looking at this. So I think they need to define what's going to be in that memorandum.
Yes.
Out of those activities that they're going to do in that
Yes.
memorandum, they need to break it down by
Yes.
whether it's paragraphs, sections,
There you go.
pages, whatever.
Yes. Be more clear about
And
what
I-
those things are.
We absolutely, we can do
Okay.
that.
I think that would maybe give us all a higher comfort level of, okay, now we understand what's gonna happen, what they're gonna do, what we're gonna see come out of this, first step or task 1.
And so would you want to see that, Michelle, prior to us even voting to accept a task 1?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think we need some time to digest, what they've done, not just, 15 minutes here in a meeting. So, yeah, I think.
When you say digest what they've done, they
Well-
haven't done anything.
Well, so whatever these deliverables are,
Mhm.
that we're obviously gonna be able to see that work, right?
Mhm.
We just need some time, oftentimes we get information right before meetings. And it's really, nice if we can have it a little bit ahead of time before the meeting so that we have a chance to review. And maybe it's that 2-week, interim between this meeting and the next meeting, depending on what these
Sure.
dates are.
And maybe I didn't ask my question correctly, and I'm not sure if, I guess my question was, as a board here today, before we propose to accept step 1.
Oh, yes.
Are you saying, I want to see in writing what they're going to cover first before we even make a proposal to say, we would like OHM to at least do step 1 of their contract for us?
That's a good question.
what about a detailed memorandum summarizing all, because really you're paying them for the time. So it makes sense that there's overlap in the steps and the deliverables, but really where it comes down to is a memorandum that they present either virtually or in person. So
Oh, maybe I can give an example.
You could do it as, you could do a
Specific to this.
condition, a conditional approval. Planning
So-
commission does.
So in the bullets, they say site visit and walkthrough. Okay, that's great. How about we get something out of, what are their takeaways from the site visit and the
Like, what are they
walkthrough?
looking to get out? Because when I hear that, so I just want to make sure I can explain it to them because I don't know that we're going to get anything out of it. They're going to receive things out of the site visit because they're going to hear what we want. So are you wanting to hear like how they're going to utilize that site visit to come up with? Like,
Well, okay, so So my background is design.
Mhm.
So the design process is about information gathering and then taking that information and basically analyzing it or putting some analysis together around it. And then having some concrete ideas, thoughts, concepts about what that means to the project.
Yep.
Right? So they can say, you know, as we walked through here and we saw this and we saw that and we saw the other thing, we think that these are maybe the priority areas that we should be focusing on. I don't know what is going on in their head.
But
That's what I'd like to see
But for
as
the-
part of,
Michelle, for deliverables, site visit, scope of work and schedule, wants and needs assessment, development program and principles, goal. Like, I hear what you're saying, but I feel like it's just a matter of how you put it in words. That's all information gathering. Then the key concern is that they have to be able to digest it and put it number 5, which could be spelled out a little more specifically, but meeting number 1, memorandum, detailed memorandum summarizing deliverables 1 through 4 with a detailed plan to move forward or something. I mean, really, like,
well, that's what we don't know. I
I
mean,
know, but
from
how
this,
else
we
are they
don't
gonna
know.
get, like,
It's kind of like, what do we need in the product brief?
I feel like it's adding a little
Yeah.
bit more to number 5 of the deliverable because the first 4 are intake to let them.
Well, they're not, though. The deliverable, so number 2 is basically they're talking about developing the scope of work and the schedule.
Which will be communicated
So
in
that's-
step 5, with the memorandum, I'm assuming.
Well, I don't want to assume. I never like to assume when a consultant is giving me something saying this is the work they're gonna do. So that's what I'm saying, if they can just tighten this up a little bit.
I'm just wondering if we can clarify in our work, like what we would like to see so that we don't lose a month knowing this is a long-term project. If we could provide that clarification right now and
Yeah.
approve the contract on the condition of, boom, what we want to see.
So that's what I'm saying. What were their takeaways from the site visit? That's the deliverable. Frankly, personally, I would like to hear from them what they did the site visit and walkthrough. So what did that mean to them? What did they see that they think is crucial or critical to the project? You know, that's what I'd like to hear from them. And then obviously they're going to develop a scope of work and schedule. Okay, that's pretty clear. And then the wants and needs assessment, I think that's, is that priorities? Or is that objectives? Or is that, I don't know what they mean by wants and need. I mean, I understand the difference between wants and needs,
Yeah.
but
I can confidently say that it's going to be the priorities of what they're hearing from here.
okay.
So if I may make a suggestion, if this were to be approved, at least for task 1, when I do my phone call, if I could have Grace as a supervisor and possibly you as the chair of the DDA sit on the call and meet Tony, and we actually do a Zoom call to go over some of the concerns of the board, to address that and to tighten that up. That way we don't lose the month, but we also, then again, we're starting to break down those silos and that would be probably a good first step. Because I hear you. You guys have never met these people. I put this in an agenda on a Friday and here we are on a Tuesday. I get it. And I want to be as transparent as possible as well.
I think that step 1 is we also need to figure out what is the area they're going to be developing, and what's in that scope with the financial, and does that, it may be additional 10,000 once we kind of push those boundaries of what we want to see. So 1, we need to understand the scope of the area. And then I think there's just a little bit more definition and explanation around some of these
Mhm.
key areas.
Mhm.
Is that something that can be clarified? Like, I think they're waiting for us to talk about, do we want to do the whole DD? I mean, it's more like the depth of, is it fair to say we would like them to at least consider the entire DDA district, but certain areas are going to get more attention than others?
Priority.
And
Priorities.
I'm completely okay with us looking at it of saying, okay, you start at the library and as you enter into this area and then you kind of hit that, the junction there at Cascade and you go as far as Greenleaf, you include Old 28th Street and you include the bridge
Yeah.
and that area with the parks. I think if you do that, especially with the offshoot, also with, you're thinking of Quest, who's going in there too. I think
Quest is the one who, yeah.
the
And I can
shopping
have them
center, those are
included.
defined areas. I think there is a further project to define if like now you've entered Cascade, how do you cohesively know you're in Cascade? That might be a separate project, or do we want to include it? These are questions we need to ask ourselves. But I think we're really focused in on that from here down to Cascade Road.
And I can have him include a map, because I mean, he put.
Yes.
Again, not familiar with the area and I wasn't either at the time. So, you know, making sure that the map defines and catches all those streets and those areas that we're really trying to encompass.
And I think we can do one of three things from my point of view. We can do a conditional approval. We could say, guys, we're all gonna have to sit around the table and have a quick meeting and approve this so we don't waste a month. Because I hate it when government takes forever to do things. I don't want to be part of that problem. Or we become typical government and we end up, you know, we'll kick the can down the road, wait a month, and it takes us an extra 4 weeks to do something. I think those are our three decisions to make, or just
I
put our
like that.
hands up and say nothing.
I like the conditional approval, and then maybe if you guys meet or whatever, do that phone call. What if we got examples of what other people have done, like those details, like our product community wants so much in restaurants, or I don't know, making it up.
Mhm.
All those things,
Mhm.
what does that kind of look like? And then I think that would help us put that out.
Yeah, so then we're going back to them quickly, defining what we're saying we need so that they can keep doing what for this task one.
Yeah, it's almost like, and I think this is fair. We're gonna put it back in their lap, because I think in task one, they have to finalize the scope and schedule the product, but we're actually gonna push some of that up. We're gonna make that a condition of them even getting the contract, is they have to drill down on that scope prior to. We need more definition, and I think they can deliver that. And if they can't, well, then I was wrong and I'm sorry I wasted your time.
And that's reasonable,
I'm sure
given
they
the fact that they did come up, like, it's
Yeah.
reasonable to hold them to that, you know.
Yeah, and because they
timeframe.
have actually put, you know, they put eyes and feet on the site.
Yeah.
So they should be able to define some more of that scope
Yeah.
and specifically the road. So whether it's Old 28th or whether it's, you know, the intersection or the Tuffy spot, they could actually define that. So as we're talking, I can see how this scope could be more detailed. And I think if we get on that Zoom call with them, then we can accomplish that.
But I think it takes the DDA's board's approval to move to each task.
Mhm.
It's like you can't move forward. There has to be checks and balances with it if we do a conditional approval, is my point of view.
Yeah.
We have a consensus.
Yeah.
I agree. I don't,
Motion for conditional approval
Wait,
of,
Scott, what do you think? 'Cause
No,
you-
I want to keep moving. I agree with, I don't want to hold up a whole month. And I think we put a lot of time into, or Cascade put a lot of time into finding the right candidate to help us move. And we're trusting his experience. So that's why we hired him. And although we do want to protect ourselves and not make any bad decisions, I put trust in you guys. And that's the way I feel that we can move forward. And I think the conditional idea is good.
This is so exciting. You got, this is silos crash down. Get ready to be the coolest kids, coolest business owners in Cascade Township. I will bet money on that.
and I think that this, I mean, start out of the starting gate, doing this with them, it's gonna help them too,
Oh,
have a better understanding. And so if we establish this sort of rhythm in the beginning, that we have this really collaborative process, I think it'll be good.
So question will be, once we define the map and they say, oh, no, we just, that's Greenleaf to Thornapple River, that's an extra 50,000.
No. Then we say, no. Don't worry.
Okay, I just wanted to,
Yeah.
and what happens then? Does it become either a decision is we do a quick meeting to discuss it, or we have to wait until the next DDA? Just want to make sure we clearly are defining things, or it's very transparent what the next step.
Yeah,
is.
if they're saying there's,
redo their budget and say, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, well, let's just focus on that area, Greenleaf to Thornapple River, and your budget just went from 130 down to 80 or whatever the case may be. And is that 80 then worth it
But-
for that
yeah,
area?
so I think we can define that. And also, we're taking the risk too, but I mean, I don't know that they're gonna want to walk away from this contract either. So I think they're gonna be open to having that conversation. I know they will be.
This is where he can leverage his relationship with this
There
consultant
you go.
because he's worked with them before.
You want to
So-
find somebody whose head doesn't turn off, who can't help it because they have ownership of whatever they do, and then you just. That's
Yeah.
what with
Yeah,
Jade, and then you
sure.
could tell he was so excited, like.
Sure, yeah. Well, and you even mentioned earlier, which, I mean, it was interesting because we've talked about this several times of what these transitions are, you know, either end of Cascade Road coming in, 28th Street coming down. And it really is the idea that there are all these moving parts and it has to be a holistic approach. Otherwise, it won't be successful. And we've had lots of conversations about that.
And I think the interesting part is that from my position, the short time I've been here, the conversations were had here, but not back at Township Hall with some of the other departments that actually are approving site plans and things like that. So there's a couple businesses that went on 28th Street that could be in that transition area that maybe shouldn't have been approved the way that they were if
Mhm.
those, now granted, they're not in, the transition areas haven't been approved or in place yet. But moving forward, that silo, that has to come down because planning and building and
Right.
you guys and myself, we all have to
So
know.
with that said, Jade, and it sounds like these silos have been around for a long time.
Well, they just got crashed down. They're all
Well,
like, they're all rubble now.
Grace brought a bulldozer.
well, I guess that's my question is how do we, yeah, you know, how is there that intercompany discussion, communication going on so that everybody has some
It's
say?
process,
It is
whether it's
process.
here or it's in large corporations I've worked at, they're all there. It's just, it comes down to process.
Keep
But I know
on-
we've talked in
Yeah.
years, you know, and we've talked about trying to, even if it is getting together with the planning commission and, you know, everybody all in the
Even
same room.
that, there's a
It's
flaw
not-
in that too, because the board of trustee, this is staff, but it was the board and management and staff. They need, but I can say it's not gonna, because this is gonna actually happen, but McKenna's been kind of on hold, you know, there's so many times we're like waiting, it felt like we were in first gear pushing the gas, but it was really because we weren't ready yet, right? And before, Jade, you've been here 4 or 5 months, but he couldn't just take this on, even though McKenna and other things were ready, because the finances were a mess. Like all the different parts, we could master plan, and then all of a sudden, this is outside of the realm of the DDA, but planning stuff that was going on with the airport that would have exploded. I mean, it's just moving pieces and it all comes down to the people that you choose and the people that are leading. And it's also hard because you can't sit there on a soapbox for an hour and talk about behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, because the past is the past. We've got to figure out what's the plan to move the whole township forward and all the.
That's what Jade says.
Does that
every
sound
time. I'm like,
familiar, Grace?
I just
Does that
picked
sound
one
familiar?
What you say, Jake?
Every day.
Every day.
And I say, but don't,
Past, let's
aren't
not
you
dwell,
curious?
right?
Aren't you curious about something? And then I can't get out and he says, no.
I-
Yeah, why taint his perfectly minded,
Mhm.
you know?
He's untaintable. We've tried.
That's good, good.
With regard to the steering committee, and could you put something together, like, it doesn't have to be elaborate, long, complicated, just simple, that basically outlines how that's going to work, you know, that, just what you said, there'll be, you know, multiple stakeholders from multiple parts of the township and then what that process is, you know, for meeting
Mhm.
and then communicating out of that meeting so that everybody sees what that is and how that's gonna work, because that is the process then. And everybody will understand it, you know, like we'll all be on the same page.
Do you think I think it's fair to say too, as far as silos go, the DDA was off on its own the most, as opposed to, we were like the redheaded stepchildren.
I don't know what any of the other.
Yeah, I have no idea what the
departments are-
No, I'm just saying what I saw from,
your perspective.
My perspective,
Because you
it
got your
was
fingers in
worth-
everything.
yes.
Yeah.
So it was,
And so from my point of view, after being on this, again, I don't even know.
I
how
felt
many
bad
years
for the
now.
DDA.
You're what?
I felt bad for the DDA because it was just, and I included in it, but you guys were very patient and kind of just like hanging out here with such a huge potential task. It's a huge project, but
There was a lot of, I mean, we were, I guess, waiting from, township to say, okay, here's the next thing coming to us, so to speak.
everything takes 4 votes.
Everything takes, yeah. But we also, I hate to say it this way, but it's not a power thing. We know we're the ones with the money.
100%.
Yeah,
I'm part of you.
I know. I know. I know.
Anyone, my seat's like the heaviest because by statute I'm required to be here and I also have the power of appointment. So
Right.
I'm on your team.
I-
But my chair is a little bit bigger.
I get that. I get that.
Flip side is I could also be outed. So you guys will stick around and I'll be gone. We're all in
And
this
any of
together.
us, and any of us.
We are all replaceable as we are all.
We're all the
replaceable.
guppies waiting for somebody to come and snatch. You bet. Okay. All right. So with everything said, is any more discussion that we need to have with this? So anybody want to make any kind of motion
It's a heck
and
of a
can put
motion.
together what we've talked about?
For simplicity, do you have a map of the DDA that you can pop up on the screen? Because if you're making a motion, it makes it really easy to say area 2,
Call it.
1,
what-
2, and 3.
I think it's called
As
the,
defined by the DDA.
what?
Should we say that area is defined by the DDA? Like we tell them what area we want, right?
I think if you have the map right now, we could just say, this is what it is, and it's a form, it's very defined.
Yeah, the only thing is like out by you, even though your business, you're gonna get the hotel license coming up soon. Police protection, that kind of stuff. Having said that, like if there's ideas that you have, should we just say the entire DDA district?
I would say the entire DDA district.
But
And so,
look at that ugly sign when you get off the expressway that says Cascade and it points to Kentwood, like. That was $20,000 part of a PUD for the Drury to come in. I mean, just there's nowhere to go but up. And I think they could sprinkle their talents throughout the entire district. It's just 28th Street
If we're talking about village redevelopment,
with an emphasis on,
right, we've always talked about, you know, that D and W
yes,
start and the bridge, really the other side of the bridge, the river, and then all the way down to, not Burton, but, Cascade Hospital for Animals.
yes.
Those were the sort of entrance points coming in for village redevelopment.
Yeah, I mean, from village, I see here, you've got the vet clinic.
Yeah.
And then you got the bridge.
Right,
But the
then
parts that really need the
includes
priorities
the
are even
old
smaller.
28th Street.
right.
Scott, as a resident nearby of Old 28th Street, that area was based on some people who are currently own business there and who've like, that could potentially turn and the road commission's willingness, you're sitting on there could be a real transition where it becomes a lot more walkable, like mixed use condos, not like high density, but like,
Yeah, but that
That's
would
what
be
we're
nice.
hoping for.
oh, don't worry, it's already here, you're gonna get it.
No, it's very picturesque driving down Old 28th Street and see the old church and it's got a lot of potential. So.
It'd be more, and then that you could do a
be
few
like-
more like.
Not a
use, like,
triangle,
still
but
like two,
almost
3 story.
like a four-sided. If we put those points
I don't
together.
want to say some other road plans now, but
Yeah,
the road
so
commission's
gotta
on
keep
board.
things moving.
But
I don't
gotta-
have it up
I can't
in
wait to
front of me
see
right
it.
now, but in the master plan proposal, there is a updated map which has the village, the transition area, and the DDA defined in it.
Oh,
If
yeah,
you guys
it's a
trust me
different-
enough to go with that map,
Yes.
can include that to say
Yeah.
the priority is the village, the transition, and then to also include the overall DDA.
And it's
and-
all that complicated zoning with overlays
Yeah.
and
Right.
stuff.
Danielle, we have that defined in the master plan map, right?
Yep, that is correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I can
It
see
doesn't-
it. I just can't get my hands on it right now. But we absolutely have those
It's in my
areas
car. You want
defined.
me to run out and get it?
I can send it to you guys so you can see the proposal.
Yeah.
But if you trust me enough to say the concentration and
mean-
emphasis is on the village transition, but to include the entire district.
Right,
Does that
I think it does.
summarize it?
I think you can also say Thorn Hills, and then you continue to go down to Cascade Road. Everything to the right of Thorn Hills is
Yeah.
that downtown is the village area.
yeah,
The map says it because
Yeah.
the emphasis is gonna be that river corner Tuffy down towards that Chowhound Dollar Tree, like.
And I think Old 28th is
take it
included
far-
in that
yeah,
village
but
area.
Money.
And then it swoops around. So yeah,
yeah. And I mean, if during the process, we say, you know, it'd be really nice if we did the tweak to this block that's, you know, whatever, I'm sure it's not gonna be like the end of everything.
Wait, could you please say that again? I accidentally stopped listening.
Soon, right, yeah. We'll finish this up.
Wait, Michelle, what was the last part? Just say it again.
If during the process, we're like, you know, if there's one street that we just say, if we had this included as part, it's not gonna like break the bank.
Oh, you
I
mean as
don't
far
mean-
as, you mean as
Yeah.
far as extending?
Yeah, during the
District?
process that we, based on this map, if there's one little piece that we say, oh, we really, it's not gonna be like such a
I-
huge change in scope that we're saying, I'm not saying it'll happen, I'm just saying if we had to alter
Right,
it.
but I think too, we have to be careful that we're not doing anything outside our district.
He won't be.
Except the bridge. The
Yeah.
bridge is allowed, we had the ability to
Right.
look at that
We
because
pushed
it
that.
affects the downtown
Okay.
Yes.
businesses. And
Yeah.
so it would help, especially because that bridge pedestrian bike is coming up
Yeah.
in this year. It
And
has
it's an
to.
entrance point
Yeah,
into the,
and we want it to tie into the
Yeah. right,
the corner.
yeah.
So I can define that and have them rewrite that and to include the entire district with emphasis on the village area. I mean, that's really what we're looking at.
Okay, so back to a motion.
Would anyone like to take a crack at it?
Not. Are we making a motion,
Conditional approval?
conditional approval? Is that,
For task one only, as of now.
okay. I'll make a motion to have a conditional approval on task one of this contract with OHM for their professional services based on the discussion and the changes that we've talked about tonight.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. You may get back with OHM.
Great.
You may proceed to transform the Cascade Township to a new level that's never been seen before.
Okay. You're not off the chopping block yet, there, Jane. Staff
I see
updates, Article 9, Cascade Road pedestrian bridge. Any updates?
Yes, so Grace was in the room, our engineer was in the room, and we met with the Kent County Road Commission and those engineers in regards to the design of the pedestrian bridge. I'm happy to announce that they have approved a design that will allow for 9 feet of a pathway on one side and 8 feet on the other. And in the past, that was not the case. They were not going to be able to expand the one side at all, and the other side was going to be about 7 feet. So through the design process and working with our engineer, we were able to come to a decision that made everybody happy. And it's not our 10-foot wide pathways, but it sure is a lot more than the 7.
And does it still allow 2 lanes of traffic coming?
It does.
And
It
it
does.
includes
They-
the actual barrier. What do you call it when the barrier stops a car?
Ask if they had a barrier to
Yep.
protect pedestrian and bicyclists.
So the one side,
It's like you drive into it, your car takes it, but you don't. It's concrete on the bottom, a little bit of
It's,
railing
it's
on
a,
the top.
it's a traffic crash barrier. So,
Okay.
yeah. So right now on the one
both
side,
sides.
they're gonna be taking the one that's out currently altogether and moving it. On the other side, there's conduit with utility lines running through it that they cannot remove that one, so it'll stay. But then we're working with them on lighting and what the actual fence will look like, guardrail or,
Yeah,
will look like. So it's not just your chain link fence, it's
More
gonna be
decorative,
decorative.
yeah.
Mhm. So very happy, really like what we see so far. And that construction is gonna happen in 2024.
So when you're saying lighting, what is?
Pedestrian lighting, like light posts,
So there could
and
be light posts.
there's
Again,
various discussion on that, because you can do some just pedestrian lighting that's low.
Right.
Or you could actually do the street lights.
Is it too much to do both?
Probably not. Well, it's all about running the electrical, but probably
And
not.
plus
Well, no.
flagpole type thing, like it makes it look really nice too, right?
yeah.
and again, just trying to think it all the way through here, a couple other thoughts. One, that it's gonna be wide enough for the maintenance vehicles to plow.
Yep.
The thought was, if light poles, any thought is, again, we talk about an entrance into the Cascade area of putting like, Banners.
Yes.
something on them as far as, you
Yep.
know, entering Cascade Township, whatever the case may be.
Yep, we talked
I think.
about that in regard, because there are some flags that hang now, but we're gonna be looking at other items, or other flags and other banners to hang on there throughout the year, not just the American flag.
And we might find that having more going on may calm the traffic because it
Mhm.
feels a little bit more dense.
And I will
So
bet money.
More lights might
Yeah.
actually calm the traffic. So I think more is maybe better.
And if I was a betting man, and I'm not saying that this will happen, and if nobody wants it to happen, then it won't. But I guarantee you that OHM will come back with some sort of entrance over Cascade Road if the road commission were to go with that. And that actually sends a message as well. So I bet you they come back with something interesting.
The bridge alone will be, I mean, safety.
Oh, yeah.
I think you're getting a lot more pedestrians. I've walked that and it's kind of scary.
Yeah.
right now.
Even though that's more, the lift is more effective than I thought, this, yeah.
Yeah.
We talked too about when they did the walkthrough, something allows you to cross the road, some people underneath the bridge too. And our engineering firm has been doing surveying to see, you know, we have more space than what on the Verburg side. We actually have more of an easement or land than what has been taken advantage of. It's not,
We have the building where the doctor's office used to be and leading up to, we have a lot of assets.
During your meeting, Jay, did you guys talk about, time? I know you said 2024 is when they plan on doing it. And I know one of the last things Dr. Siegel said at the last meeting, and when we were talking about this, is that timing of the potential construction. If we have any control on that or not.
We will,
Right,
the
so they're
final
not doing
design
it
has not
before.
been, the final design has not actually been solidified yet, but the rough, like the sizing and then the structural part of it is, but that final design is being worked on right now. So I would think that construction will probably start once it's bid out, probably by midsummer.
I think that was the hope, that it would be done during summer, would have the least impact
Mhm.
on
So
traffic.
on the buses. and-
Right, school buses and stuff like that.
So for the next iteration, could we get a schedule on it?
Yeah.
And when
If, yes, I'll keep it on here, and if I have a schedule back from them, then yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
we haven't, Jade, after we met with the engineers within the last month, did we get actual potential pictures? Like, we hadn't gotten those yet of potential railings and,
I
Like
think they
drawing-
sent them.
did they? Okay, then that might have, all right, I'll.
I
look
think,
for it.
but I can include that too.
The engineering and the structural part was a bit trickier than what we appreciated. But the road commission was involved at all, that they're all on the same page. The road commission, we got a lot more out of them than what we thought we would.
Yeah, they've been great to work with.
Does OHM kind of do like the theme to like modern versus more historical, like, so it all flows, I'm assuming?
That's what we dictate to them. So whatever the steering committee and the township wants, they will dictate. And you know what, there's many more examples that they sent me. I could have shown you. They can do super modern, they can do super classic looking. It's zero lot lines, but it's whatever we want of them, they can put it
Can
together.
they figure out how to meld we've got everything from 100 years ago to, so, and that's, I mean, we've had the discussion about how can we start looking at some transitional kind of, architectural details, things like that on buildings or facades that help
Yep.
tie it all together.
We've looked, so going through the master plan and then the zoning ordinance with the planning commission and internally with McKenna. We've kind of, is it fair to say that like, you can identify, this is critical, all this additional thing, overlay districts, because Cascade did everything as a PUD. So everyone was their own unique little creature. And now we see it, there's no cohesion. I mean, you don't want cookie cutter the same, but the flip
No.
side is Cascade, in the past, their planning thing was, we'll just create a PUD, you do based on what you want, you have a different PUD. I mean, it's like a planning nightmare. So we can't fix it overnight, but this is
Yeah.
how we get there.
Yeah.
Okay, which leads us then to the master plan and zoning updates. Anything
Um,
additional that you need to?
Not really, just that it kind of came out in our conversation that we're moving ahead and in February, we're taking that for, you know, it'll be forward facing, going to the planning commission, going to the board, public input, all that good stuff. So.
Okay, and transportation update.
So we met with Hope Network. I finally got the December numbers. And I apologize, I forgot to bring copies of that. I just Jessica just updated the graphs last week. We thought December numbers would be better. They were actually worse than the months before. So I did do an update with the Board of Trustees at the last board meeting in regards to transportation, and I was given direction from them to work with Hope Network and to not have the transportation services any longer. So I have to reach out to Scott. We did actually also meet with Scott and from Hope Network. And during our meeting, we realized that not only did we not have any ridership for that last the 7 to 9 time bracket at night, the Rapid actually has, from what we can tell from their schedule, has eliminated their ridership at that time too, coming up to where we were picking up. So it wouldn't have done us any good to continue anyway. So the Rapid has made changes to their schedules as well. Not for the good.
So when do we propose that be done and over?
I have to meet with him and kind of work through that transition. Grace and I met with him 2-3 weeks ago. And so we just have to, I would assume probably 6 weeks or so. Then we got to make sure that we let the few riders know and make sure they can make accommodations.
It's amazing how that all transpired from all the information we had to what actually netted out.
Kind of frustrating.
It really is.
Yeah, unfortunate and frustrating.
It was an expensive divorce.
Any other business?
I don't want to prolong. The only thing I thought of is just the signage about what's going on here is something we
Yes.
talked about last time of just, it's an amazing public-private collaboration.
And
What
I,
the
yeah.
update is on that.
And that is all on, I mean, I'll take the hit, but it is all on the contractors. I have not gotten that concept from them. So at this point, I think we're just gonna put some sort of verbiage out there then and put all of the definite partnerships that are helping with Friendship Park, whether we just call it Coming Soon Friendship Park and have all the logos with the DDA, the RAP grant, the township board, the library, Friends of the Library, all of that. So I think we would-
Potentially might be able to put some renderings around the library.
the renderings unfortunately
The
are,
pavilion was a pretty
Horrible.
generic, it was kind of like that computer generated, it looked like a hockey puck
Mm.
falling out of the sky.
so, and if that's what we have to put, that's what we have to put, but I think it's gonna get criticized because the final design is not. It doesn't do it justice what it's gonna look like,
I
so,
trust you on that.
yeah.
Compliments to you, Grace, on the Cascade connection. I don't know, for whatever reason, I got it in my email.
Oh, do you see the typo?
No, I didn't, but I didn't go through it because when I saw,
Correction
I
version?
saw your
Correction
second
version?
edition.
Oh, thank
saying
you.
There wasn't.
Good
there
job,
was
you were
a
supposed to
typo.
ignore those.
Okay, so I don't know what the typo was, but
First sentence
oh, really?
of the entire newsletter.
Oh, I didn't have
dear.
time to go and read it,
And that
but
one wasn't on me normally all the time. I mean, I'll take them, right? But that one was.
what I did like, and I don't know if it's been in your past Cascade connections or not, but you identified what new businesses have come into the Cascade area. There was 3 of them. I can't even remember who they were.
Yeah.
But I thought that was really good, to just even let the community know that, hey, we've got some new people or new businesses. How can we support them? So I thought that was very cool.
That
Good
was
job.
a really good call out.
That's our communications guy. I can't take credit, but thank you for giving me on. It's a great team. It's the team.
It's the team. That's right.
We've had some neat ones coming in though, an existing kind of industrial, couple Italian companies that do
Yeah.
like, it just cool stuff.
Other than that, any other new businesses that you know of? I know that you said that the cookie place went out.
Place
They're
went out
done.
of business across from us,
Oh.
Detroit Cookie Company.
What about the, have you ever been to the barbecue place across the street? It's like a Persian barbecue.
Yeah,
Used to be
backyard, it's called Backyard Grill or something like
Yeah.
that.
The one next to Starbucks.
They're still there, but it isn't, I haven't seen people highly engage it, to be honest. They've opened up now, I think, for lunch. But I don't know if they've been fully embraced.
Because were they not the
community.
business that came to the board because they didn't have?
They needed the liquor license, and because of our the new sentence numbers came out, so we had an additional good heavy duty liquor license, and yeah, they got that.
They did,
Mhm.
because I know they kept saying they were waiting for it and.
But there's more we can do in our internally, kind of just to help get the word out, connect with
Mhm.
businesses.
Mhm.
The foundation, community foundation is gonna be doing those, oh.
Those workshops?
Yeah.
mhm. Did we pay him for that?
Yeah.
Yeah, we
It's in
passed that.
process.
And he was contacting businesses directly. That was helpful, but
Yeah.
yeah, we can do more.
You mean within your newsletter?
No, it's just thinking of addition, like of us, the township kind of interacting with local businesses.
Reaching out.
Like more outreach, yeah.
Mhm. And even from a communication standpoint, things that we can do to kind of just highlight certain business, before they did the videos, which were great, but they're also really expensive. If we can get that same bang for a buck and doing,
Yeah, even if you did, like a short article on that
Yep.
backyard grill. I know that again, when they came in and they presented to the township board, just knowing what their background was.
mhm. Did it
That
make
was
you want to
that-
eat there?
Yeah, it was very interesting, just knowing, what, because where they come from, they.
Can't remember if it was Levin. I don't know for
Yeah.
sure.
But even for people to know, because I drove by there and Backyard Grill does not make me think that it is. a
Exactly, you think
Mediterranean
barbecue.
Or whatever, correct, yes. I would
Cornbread.
think it's more American style food, but it's not at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you may be able to.
And I think the Sheridan, they've invested millions of dollars in that redevelopment and they're trying to invest in their restaurant there and for the community to engage that as well. So I think there's a couple things going on that I think we could probably help them push certain companies along.
One of the trustees almost got mugged in Meyer parking lot.
Really?
Didn't tell you about that one yet.
No, I didn't hear that one.
What does almost mean?
Didn't happen?
Got away.
I mean, he was approached by somebody
Mhm.
or she was approached by somebody and was.
Good though, it gets our attention at the, not good, it's terrible.
No, it's horrible, yeah.
It's a good.
What's
idea.
the building that burned
Yeah,
down
there.
right next to JT's or?
That's a nice-
What's going on with that
That's a
property?
really.
So that's gonna be a law firm bought that. That a lot, and they're working on their design,
There, yeah. What I,
Is that
what
the
I,
building you were referring to?
maybe,
That's what I, okay,
Yeah.
perhaps.
could have been. It's the only spot along 28th.
but they are looking at rebuilding.
Okay.
But they've been
Curious.
sent back to the drawing board.
Member Carlson has her hand raised.
Jared, is it okay with you?
Absolutely, yes, please, sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, we have to talk, but what's happening with the taco place that had the fire? Are they back up and running? Or are they coming back up and running?
No, there was a more substantial fire than anybody thought. It wasn't just in their kitchen. It actually went through the roof as well. So they're looking at being closed for a few months. They do have the intention of opening back up, but they have some major repairs to do. It was worse than what it looks like from the outside.
And it was overnight, was it not? Or after they closed?
It-
It was like 10 or 11 o'clock at
I
night.
don't know if it was after they closed and they vacated the building, but it was at night, but I don't know if there were still employees there. No one was hurt. I know that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
How are your businesses doing?
Mine?
Oh, yes, yours too. All three, all the business owners.
We'll let you go first.
Kristen,
Oh, a little slower than normal, but we're working on that and trying to up our advertising. So it's a focus of ours right now.
awesome.
The biggest thing for me is weather right now. Weather is not.
Keeps people out.
Yeah, well, today though, I couldn't, the amount of traffic that was out today, just trying to even get here was amazing, but it was nice to see people were driving at the speed they should be driving
Mhm.
and not.
Would take seconds.
Yeah, they were not going crazy, so, but no, we're continuing to thrive, but it's just, it is slower, just based on weather. I've had to close early and open late because of the weather. It didn't make financial sense. to be open at 10:30 when I knew nobody was gonna be out until
Mhm.
at least noon. And it doesn't make sense staying open till 10 o'clock at night when people are trying to get home and just hunker down, so. Yeah, it's a tough call because you know that you've got team members that are dependent upon that financial. On their hours, yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely, so.
It's similar, I mean, January, new year, new you, so people cut back on cake.
Don't
I've
worry,
been
don't worry.
Every year, but I would say January is softer than it has in past years. Weather's an impact, how the calendar played out with New Year's, and New Year's Eve. It happened on a Sunday, we're closed on Sundays. So things, it's calendar based, but also we're seeing traffic is a little lighter than usual, but that is weather's part of it as well. So it's kind of, it's muddy, but we're still healthy. And it's just, we're not quite hitting our numbers the way I want us to, is the best way to say it.
Okay. Anything else for anybody? Can I get a motion for adjournment?
Make a motion to adjourn?
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Didn't think so. All right. Meeting is adjourned.